What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was the Emperor of Elements, in the Avatar Part 12. Now, let's begin. 99 years following the air nomad genocide. Roku. Omashi unexpectedly, and without any formal announcement, I found myself seated in a position of authority within the city-state. My rise did not interfere with the bureaucratic system, particularly with Bumi consistently present in the vicinity. All the essential issues in Ba Sing Se had been addressed, so Lao did not require my assistance at this time. Additionally, his entire extensive guard had moved from Jailing to the capital, accompanying Poppy. The swift progression of events raised significant concerns among the residents of Jailing province. The Flying Boar family was widely recognized for directing its focus towards the capital. It was highly uncertain whether there would be sufficient time or energy remaining for their homeland. The sole assurance from Lao, that he would always remember Jailing, provided reassurance to the populace. "I did not bring Flopsy here without purpose," Toph stated confidently, patting her chest with pride. "I have successfully saved you a total of 2 hours." Bumi shook his head, expressing a sense of regret. "Why didn't I consider this earlier?" "Indeed, well done, Toph," I said with a smile. They were simply intimidated by Flopsy. The large creature had caused them to flee, leaving behind the inquiries they had intended to address with me. It failed to address the issues, instead, it merely accumulated them. Bumi and Toph enjoyed spending time in the throne room, finding entertainment at my expense and that of the petitioners. I was genuinely appreciative of their assistance. Numerous visitors had minor concerns that could be addressed by other officials. To establish a reputation, it was essential to connect with the community. Jun likely had some involvement as well. It was not typical for her to focus so intently on unfamiliar individuals. However, positioned beside me, she displayed no reluctance in directing her characteristic disdainful and superior gaze towards each newcomer. "Lord Roku, the city model is prepared," stated one of my advisors, whose composed demeanor remained unaffected by the commotion surrounding us. Collaborating with Bumi has significantly enhanced his experience. I did not replace anyone. The entire system functioned seamlessly and demonstrated unwavering loyalty to the city. I anticipated nothing less, considering that Bumi himself could detect seismic activity, allowing him to accurately identify deceit in others. The city model was essential for a comprehensive understanding of the postal system. It will soon undergo modifications to enhance its service to the citizens. My proposal for transporting individuals has garnered positive feedback, and for several months, there has been a growing demand for additional routes. The project has garnered the attention of academics from universities within the Earth Kingdom. The recently founded Earth University has garnered significant attention, enrolling a substantial number of new students within a short period. Upon entering one of the palace rooms, I observed a miniature representation of Omashu, which occupied nearly the entirety of the spacious area. Many young men were actively engaged around it. "This area of the city is already experiencing significant strain," one of them remarked, indicating a line. "It would be advisable to consider relocating it. This district accommodates a full 10% of the city. Such congestion is essential," a man with an intellectual demeanor remarked, shaking his head. The initial speaker, characterized by his sun-kissed complexion and well-defined physique, presented an image reminiscent of a rural upbringing. The scholar hailed from Ba Sing Se University, an institution accessible primarily to those of considerable means. A new student at Jailing University was referred to as the country boy. Indeed, he may have had some gaps in foundational knowledge, yet his enthusiasm and determination were unparalleled among his peers. Lao permits individuals to gain admission to the university by completing a test of logic and wit. Free education attracted many, but within a week, most recognized that critical thinking was more challenging than agricultural labor. Only genuine talents persist in the institutions of advanced education, prepared to commit themselves fully to the pursuit of science. A significant number of individuals showed minimal interest in politics or military conflicts, lacking any figures of admiration in those areas. However, the mechanist had emerged as an important figure for them. Given his disposition, it is probable that he may never grasp. We maintained a focus on their work, ensuring that no significant disagreements arose. A further concern was the insufficient number of earthbenders available for the routes. The strategy involved the addition of multiple new transport lines, with each line necessitating a minimum of 3 earthbenders. The city lacked an adequate number of guards traditionally designated for the postal system. To address this issue, we have opted to implement a paid system for the rides. The fee was modest. However, over the course of a day, it accumulated to a significant amount, sufficient to compensate applicants from the public. This allowed numerous earthbending guards to concentrate on their core responsibilities and decreased unemployment rates. This socio-economic issue has persistently posed a significant challenge, as Omashu is encircled by desolate mountains, hindering the establishment of self-sufficiency. The majority of supplies needed to be procured from adjacent, more agriculturally productive provinces. The city exhibited indications of overpopulation, characterized by intense competition for even the most modestly compensated positions. These issues required attention before it became too late. Travel passes for both monthly and yearly durations have been established, and a sufficient number of earthbenders have been identified. The final step involved completing the system and constructing the new lines. The following day, the intimate dining hall is located within the palace of Omashu. An unusual ambiance lingered over the dinner table for several minutes. Behind the welcoming expressions of the girls and women lay a deeper narrative. "This boar is quite exquisite," I remarked, attempting to alleviate the tension with a light chuckle. "You find yourself in a challenging predicament," Bumi remarked quietly beside me, clearly the only one relishing the circumstances. An hour ago, Shizuka and Suki arrived in the city. Shizuka had successfully identified an appropriate successor for her role. A group of earthbenders, belonging to Lao's community, arrived on the island with the intention of establishing a settlement. Jun and Shizuka were evaluating one another. Although they asserted their readiness to share their partner, initial friction would likely arise, particularly given that they were aware I had numerous other women, allocated across my various forms. "Roku mentioned your expertise in earthbending. Would you be open to a friendly sparring match?" Suki inquired of Toph, her expression warm and inviting. Toph readily agreed, "I'm game," and there they proceed. On that day, I needed to thoroughly engage both women to the point of near exhaustion, to prevent any unproductive thoughts from occupying their minds. The match between the girls proceeded as scheduled. While Toph emerged victorious, Suki closely followed her lead. Shizuka's daughter exhibited superior physical training and showcased remarkable proficiency in integrating Avatar Kyoshi's techniques into her combat style. Toph, as a more experienced earthbender, possessed years of harmonious existence with the earth. Navigating between the two young rivals proved to be quite challenging without neglecting either party. I aimed to guide their emerging rivalry towards a more amicable path, similar to the dynamic between Yui and Katara. The capital city of the Fire Nation, Wanza State. The circumstances surrounding the situation remain unclear, yet the prolonged conflict of recent years has abruptly intensified. Ozai and the Fire Sages engaged in a strategic exchange reminiscent of a chess match under time constraints. The situation deteriorated as not only pawns but also elephants, horses, and rooks began to be lost. Ozai directed me to remain by Azula's side at all times, serving as a safeguard to protect one of the throne's claimants from potential threats. It is possible that my Kai blocking is becoming less effective. The Fire Lord's display of heightened emotions, particularly those of a negative nature, is quite evident. His time is limited, compelling him to take more decisive action. Based on my assessment, the situation is likely to escalate over the next year to year and a half before a full-scale conflict arises. Currently, both factions continue to function secretly, at least, that is their intention. Ozai seeks to maintain stability among the populace, while the sages are reluctant to provoke disturbances beyond their management. The current Fire Lord has demonstrated his capability as a ruler by revitalizing numerous sectors and establishing a robust middle class that could support him in challenging the spiritual authority. Old Man Jien has successfully established a closer relationship with Ozai. His data indicates that the sages exert control over approximately 25% of the military forces. The considerable figure is further amplified by the concentration of their forces primarily within the archipelago, whereas the majority of Ozai's forces are positioned along the borders with the Earth Kingdom. Neither party is prepared for the concluding actions. "Master Wan, please make an effort to engage with us," Azula said, puffing out her cheeks as she paused her assault on me. "I apologize for the interruption," I said, offering a slight smile. "I am now fully present. Let us proceed." I adjusted my posture slightly to evade a sharp throwing knife. It seems that my head movement had been anticipated by Mai, as the sunlight reflected off the blade's surface, momentarily impairing my vision. A sudden wave of heat emanated from my left side. Azula was present at that moment. 2 rolls enabled me to evade the princess's assault. I silently commended their excellent collaboration. Before executing the second roll, I sensed a subtle breeze. Tai Li was poised to deliver a strike with her foot. Where are you aiming? I instinctively covered a specific area with my hands, successfully interrupting their series of attacks. Their collaboration is commendable, as the three individuals complement one another exceptionally well. Mai manages long and mid-range attacks, while Tai Li makes her appearance precisely when required. Azula functions as a formidable force, providing both primary firepower and essential support. All the individuals exhibit well-conditioned physiques and demonstrate flexibility comparable to that of Tai Li. That concludes our session for today. The exhausted, flushed girls could only offer a faint nod. They were completely spent. I needed to proceed to the cellar. Shortly, it would be time to attend to the golden egg. Due to its expanded dimensions, it was no longer suitable for the palace, prompting its relocation to my residence, where earthbending had facilitated the creation of a concealed lower level. I anticipated the emergence of the dragon hatchling this year. However, it appears that I will need to wait a bit longer. I had a strong desire to confront the sages while riding a golden dragon. I had envisioned my future appearance in meticulous detail, long hair cascading in the wind, a confident yet resolute gaze from golden eyes. An individual of remarkable appearance, poised confidently atop the formidable Lord of the Skies, prepared to execute vengeance upon adversaries. Located in the region that lies between the Fire Nation colonies and the Earth Kingdom territory. Any updates? A serious man in Fire Nation uniform inquired. His associate had recently obtained a letter delivered by a dragonhawk. The instructions are to enter Earth Kingdom territory and await further communication. They will reach out to us shortly, the soldier stated promptly. What is our course of action, Captain? He inquired, a trace of uncertainty evident in his tone. Are you prepared to engage a well-defended Earth Kingdom base with our forces? The captain inquired, regarding his subordinate with a look of confusion. The soldier recognized that his inquiry was unwise. It is evident that a power struggle is occurring at the highest levels, as we are experiencing the repercussions, the captain contemplated. An hour ago, a general launched an assault on their base, commanding their unit to secure the closest earthbender facility. Initially, there was skepticism regarding the situation. Who would dare to assault a fortress that was home to approximately 1,000 soldiers, with a significant portion being earthbenders? The captain sought to contest the order, confronting the general to an Agni Kai. The defeat in the battle compelled them to carry out the irrational directive. If they opposed him, the general was prepared to label them traitors immediately. They were fortunate that one of the privates possessed a dragon hawk, which they utilized during the journey to establish communication with another base overseen by a general from Ozai's faction. Should they locate us, it would be prudent to surrender without delay, the captain contemplated. At the very least, they would find themselves incarcerated with the possibility of eventual reintegration into society. The newly appointed Earth King has demonstrated complete authority over all national frameworks, significantly complicating any infiltration attempts. A significant number of operatives had been out of communication for an extended period. A series of comparable incidents had been taking place over the course of several days. Each party aimed to diminish the strength of the opposing side to the greatest extent achievable. As is often the case, it is the everyday individuals who bear the greatest burden. Those who have families, aspirations, and ambitions. Two pairs of eyes were focused on the narrative of a young girl who chose to enlist in the army on behalf of her aging father. At that precise moment, an airbending illusion of Mulan passed through Daisy and me, prompting us to subtly swivel our hips to absorb all that was unfolding around us. Recently, Van Shi Tong developed an illusion room, which I referred to as a cinema. The journey commenced when I began sharing narratives from the four nations with Daisy. The narrative was enhanced by figurines representing ice, fire, or earth, depicting the characters and locations. For my daughter, I was more than willing to summon one of my airbending selves for an hour or two. At times, I found myself occupied and unable to fulfill the role of the storyteller. Subsequently, the responsibility was assigned to Drea and Gaia, who, nonetheless, were unable to completely meet Daisy's expectations. The exceptionally intelligent young girl approached Van Shi Tong, whom she refers to as Uncle Owl, requesting him to share something intriguing. It was likely more efficient for him to address the issue comprehensively rather than to repeatedly anticipate the arrival of the minor visitor. The current room we are in was designed in this manner. All the cartoons I have ever viewed are available here. I would personally spend the entire day here, but it is important to appreciate even the finest experiences in moderation. Additionally, I recall with clarity the story show binges I experienced in my previous life. I prefer not to reiterate that at this time. Perhaps when I have greater assurance regarding the future. That concludes our session for today. I remarked after the cartoon concluded. Please refrain from making that expression. You are aware that I am not the one who establishes the rules here, and it is unlikely for you to prevail against two mothers, I proceeded, deliberately avoiding my daughter's gaze to maintain composure. Indeed, she has two mothers, Drea and Gaia. We made an effort to clarify that the situation is not as it appears. Upon reflection, we recognized an important truth. Gaia, despite not being her biological mother, significantly influences her life just as much as Drea and I do. It would not be appropriate to disregard her contributions. Gaia maintained a cheerful demeanor for an entire month. All right, let's head to bed, she stated with a yawn, recognizing that her request had not been successful. Father, why does it seem so unjust? Unlike humans, spirits do not require sleep, they rarely experience illness, and they possess the ability to live for an exceptionally long duration. However, they lack the life energy characteristic of benders, and initially, they are too closely connected to their element, I continued with a smile, gently stroking the flower on her head. Her complaint was reasonable. Who among us did not wish to extend our time in front of the TV or computer for just one more hour during our childhood? Daisy acquired numerous traits from her human lineage, including the essential requirements of sleep, nourishment, air, and hydration. However, she also took something from Drea. For instance, Daisy has not experienced any growth in the past few months. We remained calm initially, as the same situation applied to her mother, who only aged after achieving a new bending rank. The initial thought was accurate, however, Van Shi Tong provided additional insights. Based on his observations, she requires not only a specific bending rank but also an appropriate level of Kai for her development. I genuinely wish for her to remain this small and delightful for as long as possible. In keeping with tradition, we opted not to proceed to our chambers immediately, but instead chose to extend our walk to thoroughly expend Daisy's energy. Father, if they enlist you in the army, I will take your place. Daisy gazed up at me with an amusingly earnest expression. I exerted considerable effort to maintain a composed demeanor, offering a sincere nod of gratitude to my small guardian. The cartoon undoubtedly left a significant impact. I found myself compelled to lift her. And Mother Gaia desires a little girl as well, Daisy suddenly stated. What leads you to that conclusion? I inquired with interest, although I could perceive the yearning in her gaze. She shrugged lightly and replied, I am uncertain. I have a strong intuition about it. Would you like to have a little sister? Certainly, we can play together, she responded promptly. There you have it, Dad. Children of her age require interaction with peers and opportunities for socialization, yet she is confined within these four walls. We escort her to urban environments and natural settings, concealing her hair beneath a large hat, though that may not suffice. I must consider this matter with due diligence. After ensuring that the already sleepy Daisy was comfortably settled in bed, I proceeded to the office of the Spirit of Knowledge. He mentioned that he had a matter to discuss with me. I asked immediately, observing the unusual multicolored schemes and lines that adorned the entire office. I am nearing completion of a barrier designed to contain the great Ravu and Vatu, he stated, lifting his gaze from an item on his desk. Preliminary calculations indicate that we will require 10,000 mid-level benders from each of the four primary elements. 40,000 individuals skilled in bending techniques? Let's proceed with the calculations. We can confidently eliminate the earth and fire benders, I stated while counting on my fingers. By the time the dark spirit is released, we will certainly have that many. Additionally, we can include waterbenders in this count. Assuming no catastrophic events occur, we can anticipate that number. However, what is the status of airbenders? I have some ideas, he replied, which was a relief. I was already considering the possibility of having to become a machine for producing little air nomads. Even if we don't gather a significant number of airbenders, we can utilize air spirits. Additionally, each high-level spirit can replace 10 mid-level ones, and the same principle applies to benders. Therefore, it is advantageous to cultivate as many masters as possible. However, it is prudent to plan as if we will not have spirit assistance. Each spirit contributing to the barrier diminishes the number available for your defense later. I anticipate that the dark spirit will not be pleased with our initiative. Prepare for all dark spirits to be drawn to us. I acknowledge your point, I replied, remaining deep in contemplation. I will reach out to Lao promptly to initiate a comprehensive promotion of bending development. Is that everything? I inquired, already halfway out the door. I require a restful night's sleep today, as tomorrow marks the solstice, and I will need to be at my best. I believe you will find a conflict featuring 1,000 dark spirits of diverse types to be intriguing, he stated, prompting me to promptly return to his desk. Could you please provide further details? It has been observed that in proximity to a substantial settlement of light spirits, there has been an increased frequency of dark spirit appearances. Initially, they faced swift elimination, however, their numbers continued to increase. It was evident that they were mobilizing resources for an offensive. This marks the initial significant influx of spirits. However, in the future, their quantities will be beyond enumeration. I am in. How could I decline? Otherwise, I would need to conduct my own search for dark spirits. In this space, numerous instances of all four elements will be present simultaneously. Please visit me tomorrow, and I will direct you to the appropriate location. Will you not be attending yourself? There are no expectations of ancient spirits, he stated, shaking his head. Furthermore, the settlement is currently safeguarded by another relatively young ancient spirit. Understood, I responded. By relatively young, we are referring to a time frame of a few thousand years, correct? My unexpected arrival amidst the vast expanse of sand did not elicit much surprise from anyone. For a brief moment, I experienced a heightened sense of focus, which soon dissipated. The local settlement leader, that seemingly youthful ancient spirit, likely cast a glance in my direction. As I surveyed the landscape, I observed an expansive stretch of sand, displaying a myriad of hues in yellow, orange, and brown. An oasis was discernible in the distance. On the opposite side stood a 10-meter-high wall, emanating energy significantly more powerful than my own. It is undoubtedly the work of an ancient spirit, I considered, proceeding directly toward it. The other spirits were also heading in that direction. The majority of the locals I encountered were felines. Indeed, they exhibited a range of colors, sizes, and breeds, yet they were all cats. I believe I have come to understand the reason for the lack of attention directed towards me. It appears to be the presence of cats, after all. These creatures exhibit a rather absurd approach in their attack, remarked a bipedal cat with notable arrogance. It is said that there will be thousands of them. Another cat, resembling a more typical earthly feline, remarked with apprehension, tucking his tail. There is no need for concern, my young companion, the Baron stated in a patronizing manner. Kuro-sama will ensure that nothing adverse occurs, he stated, seemingly alluding to the ancient spirit known as Kuro. A moment ago, you were confidently mocking the adversaries, and now you find yourself depending on some Kuro? I rolled my eyes. It appears they became aware of my focus, as they exchanged a glance in my direction. No fur, just bare skin, the anthropomorphic cat stated, scrutinizing me from head to toe without lowering his tone. Poor creature, he concluded with real pity. Stay calm, he's just a talking cat. An arrogant talking cat, I reasoned, wishing to pet him once, but I wouldn't concentrate on others' remarks. Instead, I'd glare at his back with a furious expression. Very adult-like. Yo, good job. Okay, enough fooling around. I soon approached the wall. A considerable number of ghosts had already collected there, gazing nervously at the horizon beyond the wall. The dark spirits were marching in tandem with the coming sandstorm. Another 5 minutes elapsed before I noticed the first more definite outlines of the enemies. It soon became evident that the 1,000-strong army was causing the storm with their feet, paws, or whatever else they had. Long-range attacks, ready, resonated across the wall in a deep, somewhat purring tone. I thought there'd be no command here. I was relieved to be mistaken. A good commander is always an asset. It wasn't long before I got a better look at the attackers. The vanguard consisted of uniform spirits that resembled trolls or ogres. These huge beasts have rows of sharp fangs that wouldn't fit in their jaws. It appeared terrible, particularly the impulse they were generating. Scanning the wall, I noticed many of the feline ghosts' paws trembling. Most likely, only a few had previously met dark spirits. They become accustomed to living under security. It would be difficult for them to adjust to combat. Yet, it is precisely what awaits them in the next years. Not a single ancient spirit, I concluded, scanning with all of my senses. There were higher-level spirits, but their proportion to the total number was not very high. An ancient spirit would have devoured them in one bite, I remembered. Kuro clearly recognizes that his protégés need to learn to fight. Fire, the same voice exclaimed. A branching lightning bolt erupted from my index and middle fingers, instantaneously killing dozens of weaklings. At this distance, I couldn't take their energy, but with so many of them, I'd have plenty. So, until they neared the wall, I would gradually lessen their numbers. Our blows lacked synchronization. Everyone fought their own way, but they still managed to hit the opponents. Several minutes passed before the first spirits approached the wall. Their wits hadn't completely failed them. They recognized they couldn't pierce the wall, so they began climbing it, becoming great targets. We were fortunate because there were few flying spirits, and I eliminated them first. Retreat, the instruction arrived just in time. Another few minutes and the enemy would have ascended the wall. The feline spirits rushed back on all paws. I also began a leisurely retreat, killing the lucky ones who had climbed the wall first. In the distance, I noticed a straight line of larger cats, probably the second line of defense. They appeared better prepared, and we'd already eliminated around 30% of the bad spirits. Time for me to eat too, I reasoned, as it was the ideal time. While most spirits were still beyond the wall, to murder those that were climbing. Activating my Kai and reducing air resistance with airbending, I transformed into a sonic boom. A lengthy blood-stained blade easily killed lower and mid-level spirits. Only higher level ones were slightly more difficult. Only now did I truly understand the distinction between regular higher level spirits and myself. After gathering enough energy, I moved behind the allies, who began to gaze at me with respect. This lasted for an hour. I'd move forward, exerting my talents to the maximum, giving the cat spirits a break, and then return. Shortly after, the fire and airbenders caught up with the waterbenders and proceeded to the opening stage. Earthbending accelerated, reaching the mid-level stage. Simply said, there were the most earth spirits present. Toward the end of the battle, while we were finishing off the dark spirits, a gigantic black cat with horns emerged on the battlefield. The ancient spirit's bristling fur and rigid posture made me unconsciously clench my muscles. From its faint hiss, a thick beam of green energy flew far ahead. It seems another MRRR has appeared, Kuro muttered quietly before departing. Kuro's strike created a long, wide clearing. The cats remained in a polite attitude for a few more seconds. Kuro observed another ancient ghost watching our combat and reflected on his remarks. Fortunately, a formidable foe did not appear. I am not prepared for that yet. After a while, we polished off the remaining spirits. The cats started enjoying their win and headed toward the oasis. I, however, chose to return home. There were still a few hours till the solstice, but my catch was already complete, and I was running on empty. Plus, there's still an ancient spirit prowling around here somewhere, and I don't want to risk it. As I looked at the departing spirits, I realized that my proximity to Gaia was affecting my sense of normalcy. Among the defenders, I noticed two lovely humanoid female cats. I admit that my eyes frequently scanned their lovely bodies. It's xenophilia, it's not that bad. They're spirits. Dria's a spirit too, I comforted myself. Naruto. The library of Van Shi Tong. Days passed in the same rhythms I had become accustomed to. I assisted my other self with knowledge, practiced contorting and stretching my body, went to the virtual reality room several times a week, and enhanced my control and understanding of the elements by bending. I also spent some time with my daughter. It still feels awkward to use the word daughter, because I'm not used to having a tiny girl who is a part of me by my side. Her accomplishments elicit even stronger emotions in me than my own. I'm not sure, maybe that's how it's supposed to be. Another day was coming to a close, and I was in bed with Dria and Daisy. Daisy refused to sleep in her own crib, so Dria and I had gotten used to going to another room for privacy. Things had also changed in other ways. We chose to focus on other forms of connection because we were concerned that intimate ties would result in another kid. But I'm tormented with doubts. It appears that Dria can absorb my energy through her entire body, making other forms of intimacy problematic. At first, I was hesitant to finish, even on her skin, fearing she might absorb it. But what is, will be. Daisy has already demonstrated that she is not the typical child who requires constant care. So, do you like Gaia? Dria asked me via our spiritual link. How did our talk ever come to this topic? Yeah, she's nice, I said blankly, trying to figure out why she asked. You like her, too? Dria exclaimed enthusiastically. Uh-huh. I interrupted the awkward silence. I could tell Dria was hesitant, wanting to say something but holding back. Gaia wants a child, she exclaimed, sighing quietly and caressing her large chest. Now it was my turn to be silent. I was aware of Gaia's secret wish for a kid but tried not to think about it. And here we are. What do you think about it? I asked, even though Dria does not appear to be a jealous person. I'd be happy for her, she replied, her sparkling eyes catching mine. She's wanted this for a long time but couldn't make it happen, and Daisy would have someone to play with. Gaia was too shy to tell you herself, so she asked me to. Does she even have, you know, the necessary parts? I inquired, assuming Drea was exceptional in that way. After all, no writings addressed spirits and humans having offspring. Lady Tianhai does not count. Even as a ghost, she resembles a huge human woman. She has everything, Drea told me, nodding. And she's waiting for you in our room, she explained nonchalantly. Don't think I'm pushing you. I still love you so much. I just want you to know. Honestly, I anticipated this from you. I asked Drea for some time to ponder, then analyzed the situation from every viewpoint. Let's be honest. I enjoy Gaia. I've grown to like her personality. Her nature plays a significant influence, as Drea demonstrated. Spirits do not share many human conceptions. Consider jealousy or monogamy. If they exist, they're at the bottom of Drea's list. Seeing her emotions, I was eager to meet her halfway, yet a part of me opposed her exotic physique. That uncertainty dissipated after seeing the desert in the spirit realm, which is populated by cat spirits. Why limit myself to the ideals of my previous universe when I'm living in an entirely new reality? However, her objectives are now slightly bothering my intuition. She isn't interested in me. She wants the child I can provide her. But I refuse to let go, especially if my own blood, or energy, is involved. Many of my previous relationships did not begin as well as this one. In my early years, my abundant life force and hormonal surge fueled a great desire to explore the bodies of beautiful women. It was all mingled with my fantasies about animated characters. I was thinking with the incorrect head. As our relationships progressed, we formed deeper feelings. I'm convinced that my lovely teenage phase back then couldn't have inspired true love. Kaya and Shizuka discovered stability in me for themselves and their children. They were confident their loved ones would be safe with me. I don't blame them. I wanted their bodies too. Only with time did we create something as intricate as love. Drea's case is different, something like imprinting occurred between us, but I'm still not sure. But I have no doubts about her feelings. It's difficult to hide anything from spirits. You can always tell how they feel about you. Something similar happened to Jun. For her, I became the destined man she couldn't let go of. Her passion has only recently begun to diminish. I hope she will stick with me not because of my strength, but because of who I am. Ursa is another example. I was literally her only option. She attempted to determine whether I was connected to Ozai or another high-ranking official, fearing discovery and exile from the palace, away from her children. When she saw I wasn't following anyone's commands, she jumped into my arms without hesitation. Circumstances brought us together, but we've already sparked genuine love. All we need to do now is keep it going. But don't doubt it. I could have won their hearts in any situation. Alright, I've thought it over. Gaia will be a great mother to our children, I informed Drea. Take what you've been given, correct? Great advice. I knew you wouldn't refuse. Drea smirked as she kissed me goodbye. Be gentle with her. I left our room with mixed emotions, her words resonating in my mind. I knew you wouldn't refuse. It's as if my women know me better than I know myself. Before I knew it, I was standing in front of the appropriate door. I took many deep breaths before opening it. Gaia stood there, already naked, with eager eyes fixated on me. Her nervous hoof-tapping demonstrated how anxious she was. The soft light revealed her magnificent form, which she awkwardly attempted to conceal with her hands. So, do you agree? She inquired, her voice shaking with excitement. Yes, I replied, quickly adding, but I want to be a part of the child's life as well. I hope you'll stay close to me. It wasn't the ideal start for what was to come, but I needed to clear things up. Of course, that's what I wanted, she murmured, her emotions bubbling over as she nodded repeatedly. Can you change the lower half of your body into human legs? I inquired, feeling uneasy. I can, she said, hesitantly. But some things might be lost in the process. I've rarely changed my appearance, so I don't have much experience, she said quietly. I should have expected that. Looking into Gaia's expectant eyes, I couldn't say no. Who knows if she'll be able to duplicate those intimate moments in the future. My prolonged stillness appeared to prompt her to act. Gaia gently took my hand and guided me to the only bed. She sat on the edge and carefully lowered herself onto my lap, curling her legs to the side. Can you take off your pants? She said quietly, her tone raising my excitement level. She was quite adorable in that moment, especially with her voice. I silently removed my belt, lowering my pants and underpants to free up energy. As it jumped out, it lightly hit her chest. "Tell me if you don't like it," she said softly, taking it in her hands and moving her face near. Her warm breath caused the tip to twitch eagerly. "You're doing great," I replied gently, noticing her effort. She wasn't as good as my other partners, but I've always appreciated seeing my energy overwhelm a mouth. My hands quickly explored her naked body. I heard a sweet squeal as I pinched her tight nipple. She didn't anticipate that of herself. My fingers slipped into her large bulk. She undoubtedly has the most stunning figure I've ever seen, and it looks great on her body. Soon, I felt the buildup begin to subside. Drea said I needed to swallow everything, she murmured, sucking my discharge into her mouth. A few droplets landed on my energy source, which she also attended to. "My turn now," I murmured, preventing her mischievous tongue from initiating another round. I took her hands and helped her stand. I stepped behind her and stood in front of her distinctive body. Grabbing her lively tail, I discovered her riches. Almost like a human's. What I had feared did not happen. Gaia had a perfectly gorgeous opening, perhaps somewhat larger than normal. So beautiful, I couldn't help but say aloud, sliding my fingertips lightly along her slit. Gaia swiftly covered her face with her hands, and I could feel the waves of her embarrassment. "I'm going in," I announced, half questioningly. Hearing no definite reaction, I began to carefully approach her. "Ah," she said again, this time with a gentle murmur. "I've only gone in an inch." Her sensitivity and tightness were remarkable. As I moved slowly forward, I could hear the symphony of her squeaks and groans. Just as I neared the hilt, her body became slack. At the very least, her front legs collapsed. "Sorry," she said faintly. "It felt too good." "It's okay," I said, stroking her soft, short fur. "Better lie down wherever you're comfortable. It'll only get more intense," I conceded, my tone slightly gloomy. She resumed her previous position while focusing on my energy. Gaia did have a few mini-releases as I gained traction. Perhaps it is the effect of centuries of abstinence? The universe obviously didn't offer her that opportunity for nothing. I believe that spirits and humans were destined to create a new race by mixing only their best characteristics. Drea, Lady Tianhai, Gaia, and even the River Lady may fit in here. She's clearly too human, and I've noticed similar features in several cat spirits. No, I was not staring. I simply have exceptional vision. I must have been lost in thought because I didn't detect Gaia's harsh cry. Her entrance was filled with my essence and her juices. "Give me a moment to recover, and we'll continue," she murmured, forcing herself to speak. "I'm not leaving. We can continue tomorrow, or the day after," I murmured, turning to face her, or rather, her shape. She said, shaking her head. "The more we do this, the faster we'll have a child," she remarked, focusing her attention on my sticky fluid-soaked energy. "Then let's try the other opening. Maybe it's less sensitive." She consented, and I positioned myself at the back entrance. I entered her without hesitation, already warmed up. Gaia's body reacted with a spasm, bathing my energy source in her juices. "She's out," I noticed. Now I can boldly state that I conquered a higher spirit with only my energy. At least we know her anal passage is even more sensitive. I scooped her up and placed her on the bed. I almost went to my room with Drea out of habit, but I suddenly reconsidered. It would be inappropriate to leave after our first night together, and I did not want her to have any ridiculous thoughts. Better to sleep next to her. I made my selection and hopped onto the bed to get comfy. I couldn't resist burying my face in her silky cushions. I immediately felt better, and sleep was sneaking in. That is the power of a spiritual embrace. Outside the entrance to the chamber where Yo and Gaia lay, this insufferable human-spirit hybrid will turn this sanctuary of knowledge into a den of vice, Ban Shi Tong's aide complained angrily. But maybe another Daisy will appear, she reflected, pausing. After all, Daisy is a good thing, and Yo's actions are questionable, but the ultimate result is still positive. Fire Lord's Palace. Wan. Standing with my hands clasped behind my back, I assumed the role of a wise mentor, observing with mounting pride as two generations, father and daughter, sparred. Even Ozai appeared shocked at Azula's improvement, with a flash of something passing through his eyes. He'd been preoccupied with the fire sages recently, leaving him with less time to watch his daughter's firebending training. Today was the exception. Ozai insisted on witnessing my claim that Azula had achieved the status of firebending master. For months, at the girl's request, we'd concentrated on their teamwork while ignoring Azula's individual firebending. I was glad to discover she had continued to develop her Kai management on her own. Ready yourself. Father, Azula exclaimed, preparing to unleash lightning. With a quick circular motion of her hand, a bolt of blue energy surged forward. Her lightning technique alone might outperform half of the masters. Ozai absorbed the hit with folded arms, diffusing its energy in all directions. Following a brief show of light, the Fire Lord remained uninjured. I've seen enough, he eventually stated. From this day forward, the Fire Nation has another promising firebending master. He nodded to Azula, who received the compliment with a placid face, as if gaining such a title was routine. I'm confident she'll seek my compliments for days. Advisor Wan, your reputation will soar even higher in the coming days, he continued, curving his lips into a sneer. He likely appreciates the Fire Sage's increased focus on me. Why, Advisor Wan? Thanks to Elder Zhang, who frequently joins Ozai, I've predicted some major actions by the other team. Drea and Yo have made great advances in espionage. The difficulty was to present this material as a product of my strategic and logical abilities. My intelligence, supplied through Zhang, has saved many of Ozai's citizens. Within a week, the Fire Lord took notice of my humble self and remembered my family's history. After demonstrating that my observations were not coincidental, I acquired his trust and the title of advisor. I've chosen to be more daring, as Van Shi Tong's strategy demands as many firebenders as possible. The sages may obstruct this, therefore I've arranged for the rescue of several firebenders in the Earth Kingdom territory. To avoid friendly fire, they submitted to the Earthbenders. Lao already knows about my other bodies and plans, therefore he is willing to receive hostile forces. After all, both nations will eventually exchange captives. When I returned to my estate that day, I saw that it had been searched. Fortunately, Roku had done his work properly, and the floor beneath remained unknown. It felt like my first month in the palace, with every action being tracked explicitly or secretly. It wasn't just me. This condition limited my time with Ursa, leaving her frequently dissatisfied. She has been accustomed to sweetness. But that wasn't enough. Iroh's letter came soon after. Someone had attacked him and Zuko. The Fire Nation likely got more than one letter. One for the family that left out important information and a more thorough one for Ozai. The Order of the White Lotus told me that the attackers were a group of firebenders led by a junior fire sage. Iroh fought them off, but Zuko lost his hair. It looks like he was meant to confront the flames. They didn't get hurt badly, but they were afraid of another attack, so they opted to stay in Yu Dao City, close to the fight. It is unlikely that they will cause problems in one of the oldest and strongest colonies, especially since they are staying with Mayor Morishita. Ursa didn't settle down until she got a letter from her son and saw his handwriting, which she recognized right away as being a little awkward. Her reasoning was simple. Things couldn't be too horrible if he could write. Ozai swiftly chose someone he partially trusted to be Azula's permanent protector. This was a high-profile job that many people would want. But he gave it back to me. Now I'm not surprised by how much attention I get. As always, I expect you at today's meeting, he remarked, looking at me. After a moment, he added, Azula can come too. I like that Ozai plainly favors his daughter. Azula jumped into my arms with pleasure as soon as Ozai left. Finally, father is taking me seriously, she remarked after hugging me passionately. Ty Lee and Azula have been getting closer to me lately, let's say. I'm still pretending to be stupid for now, but if this keeps up for 2 or 3 years, I'll have to do something. I want to warn you, don't say anything at this meeting, I stated in a serious tone. It's your first time. Just listen and watch. Talk about it later in private. She nodded and said, old fogies don't like young people teaching them. I forgot she's not Zuko and knows how to read people. Well, you could say that, I said with a smirk, thinking back to my initial encounters with the Northern Water Tribe. Sending General Ming's troops to the borders of Omashu is a smart move. The suspension bridges are ready, and a boy is sitting on the throne with no experience. Now is the best time to attack. One of the admirals, a sage puppet, said this with great emotion, almost foaming at the mouth. Of course, he wouldn't send his own men. His purpose was to keep Ozai's troops away from the islands. Ozai's friends looked worried, but the other side nodded in agreement with their friends' silly statements. People with brains recognized that the Earth Kingdom was much stronger now, and Omashu couldn't be caught off guard, especially when Bumi was still alive. I don't think it's a good idea, I said, shaking my head. Sure, we could take the city, but at what cost? Are you ready to replace the thousands of soldiers who would die at Omashu's walls? I hammered him with questions that made him think, the most important one being, Which side are you even fighting for? Honorable advisor, he murmured, his voice full of hate. He, like others here, still doesn't like that someone so young is here. The Fire Nation's army is much stronger than that mainland rabble. Losses are unavoidable, but the result is worth it. You've been under Vachu's spell for too long. You can tell he wants blood. He doesn't care who suffers as long as there is turmoil. I looked at Ozai and noticed that he was calm, but one vein on his forehead was plainly pulsing. Don't worry, Ozai. Don't allow these idiots to get to you. Okay. Okay. I yelled louder. I see your confidence and love for your country, Admiral. You're just what our country needs. Everyone looked at me with more and more surprise as I talked. Someone even acted like they were twisting their finger near their temple. Only Azula, my pride, sat there with a stone-faced look on her face. General Ming, unfortunately, doesn't have your determination. Why not lead the attack yourself? If the Fire Lord agrees, I'll ask for your transfer from Admiral to General. At the end of my statement, the Admiral was breathless and clearly didn't know what to do. He would be going back on his own comments if he backs down. The sages wouldn't forgive him if he agreed, because he would lose all of his ships in the Fire Nation. But there's a reason he's been an admiral for so long. He was able to get out of the rhetorical trap. Another meeting ended in a tie. Azula wanted to wander about the capital's streets to get some fresh air after the meeting, which was both literally and figuratively stuffy. I inquired, what did you think of the meeting? As we went. Sad, she said. I didn't think they would be so clearly divided. That's why we need to get rid of some people as soon as possible, I added, and Azula nodded in agreement. She already knows who is causing problems. The princess is old enough to hear the truth. While we were walking, I saw an older woman who was dressed stylishly. She looked like someone I knew. I remembered her picture from the second page of one of her books. Auntie Lan. She wasn't as beautiful as she used to be, but she still looked good. I didn't think I would see her. She's a regular guest at social events, and people want her guidance. Of course, no one talks about it in public. Her history isn't anything to be proud of. I shook her out of my mind and focused on more essential things. Next week, I'll go to all of the jails in the Fire Nation. I need a good reason, even if it's just because my advisor is being watched. I want to know how many prisoners of war there are and how they are doing. The show only showed Boiling Rock, which is the most secure prison, but there are many more. Boiling Rock is where the most dangerous criminals, traitors, and high-ranking POWs are kept. Most of the convicts are weaker firebenders who are kept in different places. Ozai probably won't bring all of his troops together for the last battle on the island. This makes us wonder if the Earth Kingdom troops should join in. The Mechanist has made the first model airship. There should be a dozen by the end of this year and the beginning of next year. I aim to use them to attack the Sages' bases and bomb ships. In this way, the Earth Kingdom will help the Fire Nation, showing that the conflict is pointless. If someone attacks them, they can fight back from the air. There can never be too many firebenders. Each one will be a brick in the wall that stops Vachu. I don't have enough to worry about. I still need to find out how regular soldiers feel about different directives. Why kill regular troops who can't disobey their leaders, who in turn obey the sages? The most important thing is to save as many lives as possible. I should get in touch with my tournament pals because they've been in these circles for months and know more than I do. Should I call Yo and Drea instead? I can't wait for these fanatics to be over. Naruto. The Northern Water Tribe. Chief's personal training hall. A few days ago, shortly before the next solstice day, I remembered a waterbending method that I had forgotten about. It has to do with healing, but in a more spiritual way. I'm talking about the power to change energy from bad to good and back again. Unalak first showed it when he saved Avatar Korra from an evil spirit. As far as I can remember, you have to put water ribbons around the spirit and then fill them with either good or bad kai. I looked through the Wan Shi Tong library from cover to cover and figured out that Unalak, Korra's uncle, probably came up with this strategy. There wasn't a single reference to anything like it. Wan Shi Tong's reaction suggested that he had never heard of it, but he was quite interested in what I had found. After all, more and more light spirits are getting sick from Vadu's kai. This method might finally help us balance the playing field, even if it's just a little bit. The spirit of knowledge said that the way old people think is not as flexible as the way ancient spirits think. Some of them just don't see or understand the danger that is coming. I realized that I hadn't seen him in the library as much lately. Now we know what he's been up to. He's trying to get in touch with his coworkers. I tried to learn the technique in the days leading up to my move to the spirit world so I wouldn't have to figure it out on the spot. It was easy to make water ribbons, but how do you make them gold? How can you put good kai into water? If it's a method that can be taught, it can't be something unique. I wish I had seen The Legend of Korra more than once. The first time I saw it, I often skipped parts that I thought were uninteresting and predictable. Of course, I regret it now. Unalak might have told his niece about the theoretical underpinning for mastering the skill at some point in the presentation. But if we think properly, Unalak could both heal spirits and, on the other hand, change kai into negative kai, which would make spirits gloomy again. It looks like using the negative kai transformation on people could kill their souls. I don't know if that's true or not because he never finished it, but it's hardly probable that anything positive will come of it. This all points to the idea that a person has both bright and dark kai. If we go further with this idea, positive kai is the good feelings we have, such as love, trust, gratitude, joy, and so on. Attempt number 1, I thought, thinking about the people I loved. I felt so many feelings that my body seemed to fill with warmth. Then I tried to put that warmth into the water ribbons. I thought I was on the right course, but something was missing. This method can only be used by waterbenders who are good at healing. I don't think the term healing is in the name by mistake. So, life kai must be involved. This is the same kai that healers employ in modest amounts. I changed the best dose of life kai in the next tries till the ribbons started to turn a bright yellow. Around the 12th try, things started to get better. The first few meters of the ribbons turned gold, but then they stopped. I stopped the technique and sat down on the cold floor to swiftly go over my actions in my head. I must have done something wrong, but what? This can't be. Or can it? I just saw one thing that didn't match up. The ribbons weren't all the same width. Also, my gut feeling, which had been quiet until then, seemed to pat me on the head in satisfaction. That's the only way I can make sense of how I feel. Unalak must have had help. Someone who understood the essence of different kai. Maybe Vatu was whispering in his ear. Unalak agreed with the Red Lotus's principles, which are based on disorder and anarchy. There was a lot of similarity between him and the Great Dark Spirit. I chose to try negative kai once I learned how to change good kai. Anger and rage should work, I thought right away, remembering the day Ko the Face Stealer struck. The water ribbons quickly became dimly illuminating purple lines. I was curious, so I decided to try the idea out, especially with feelings. The results were odd. Even when I thought about taking over the world for a good cause that would make everyone better, the ribbons took away my good feelings. This means that the technique can be readily changed and has no boundaries. The user decides what is good or bad for them. The world of spirits. It is becoming easier and easier to move across realms. I latched onto the faint presence of dark kai and followed it. I wanted weak dark spirits to be my unwilling test subjects today. My body soon appeared in a lifeless jungle. The trees no longer gave off life, and the dark dirt seemed like it was full of dark kai. Even if its concentration was low, the place nonetheless felt strange. As soon as I looked around, I saw the first local person. A green head with protruding eyes and a mustache and beard made of plants. It may have been an ogre or a troll. This planet will probably always surprise me. I strained to hear what he was saying when he said, "What are you mumbling about?" He kept talking nonsense. He started to get closer and curse, or so it seemed, while bouncing around. Okay, let's get started, I thought, but first I had to shock him. I made a big ice mallet by collecting water particles in the air. For the following several seconds, I hit his head with half of my strength. His head was harder than I imagined, and he even shot fire out of his mouth. The spirit was finally in the correct state, as shown by the drool that was coming out of his mouth. The moment had come for the procedure. I started to fill the water ribbons around him with good kai. He exclaimed, "Ah," and made weird faces. His body began to give forth black smoke, but he wasn't getting lighter. It took a minute for the process to finish, and now he stared at me with a clearer, but scared, face. I thought, Vatu's kai probably left him, but this spirit was already dark by nature. That's why he made more sense. What if I changed the polarity of the technique? The purple ribbons packed with my bad feelings didn't appear to bother him at all. It doesn't make sense for me to make him dark when he already is. Okay, you can go, but the next time we meet. I didn't continue, but I used my kai to hold him in place, which worked better than words. The medium spirit's head nodded immediately, and he started to run away. I don't hate dark spirits, except for Vatu and co. We don't get furious at wolves for hunting herbivores because they are all part of the same ecosystem. It seems like a good comparison. And most significantly, I wouldn't get much out of a single medium spirit, too small a catch for me. I think Unalak could only lighten spirits who were already light, not make them into light spirits. It's worth a shot. There are many ways to tell if a ghost was once light. First and most important, even as they go dark, they still appear. Well, not dangerous. They get some traits that are typical of terrible creatures, such as horns, sharp teeth, or glaring red eyes. Second, Vatu's Kai makes their bad traits even worse. For instance, bloodthirst becomes total, so they attack anything that moves. If it doesn't move, they move it and strike. People who have lately gone dark nevertheless strive to battle the feelings that have been forced on them. Because I was sensitive, I was able to swiftly identify new spirits that matched the bill. I said, cute creatures, while looking at rabbits with red eyes and horns on their heads. Their twitching movements said a lot about how they had recently turned dark. I did the same thing and then waited for results. The rabbit's horns went away about halfway through. I changed the Kai to negative before they were completely aware of what was going on. The reaction was quick. They started to go back to their dark state. Likely, Vatu's Kai hadn't faded away yet, and my bad feelings made it spread faster. I hope they don't mind if I do one more test. The bunnies, or rather, the low-level snow spirits, were too easy to convince. They were grateful for their rescue and were willing to do all I said, as far as their limited knowledge would let them. Let's not forget that they are still at the bottom of the hierarchy and have minds like a very smart dog. I was ready to quit the procedure at any time since I didn't want to put these spirits in danger. This time, the bad Kai didn't take them to the other side. It just hurt them. I could probably change their nature by force if I kept on, but why would I want to? I don't want to recruit more foot troops to the army of darkness. I have adequate information. I thanked the spirits and took them to the nearest place where other light spirits lived. I don't want my hard work to go to waste. At least this way, they might be able to live through or outlast Vatu's effect on the earth. I didn't feel like hunting, so I spent the day liberating souls on both sides. I would make an exception and not kill the dark spirits that ran away when the procedure was over. I soon realized that as the hours went by, it grew tougher to keep up with the method and the procedure took longer. My mental and emotional tiredness were both hurting me. It's hard to keep the proper feelings going when you have to rely on the same experiences to trigger them. There were still a few hours till dark, but I was already feeling tired. Still, I helped around 350 spirits get their heads straight again. Juan also says that there is a surprise waiting for me on the other side. It's hard to say it's a surprise when I can read my mind like an open book. While I was in the spirit world, Juan heard howls that sounded familiar coming from his estate. Spark, a sea dragon who had grown bigger since I died, was swimming in the sea not far from Juan's home. I knew he'd pick the archipelago since you can't resist nature. He was wise enough not to exhibit himself in public. He might have already seen Fire Nation ships, which were plainly not delighted to see a big, strange marine creature. Naruto. Some giant snakes swam to the main port. My sister knew I was back and told me the news right away. It caused a huge stir in the capital. I moved fast through the city by using the canal water. I soon spotted the dragons' long bodies as they carefully watched the throng. People pointed at them, threw fish, and one person even offered to paint a guy against the backdrop of the huge animals. Glad to see you too, I said, knowing what droplet and icicle meant by the sounds they made. Naruto. You know them, right? Katara exclaimed with bright eyes. I didn't think she'd respond that way. She wasn't the only one who was excited. The elders were already preparing to feed the dragons only to keep them at the pole. People soon liked them after seeing how they mastered the sea. It was like seeing someone from my own country in a different land. Yes, I know them well, I had to say louder because it wasn't just Katara who was asking. My dad was already talking quietly with other important individuals who were there, probably trying to think of ways to win over the guests. Yes, your scales are beautiful. I told the dragons that swam up to me. What could I say to them after this? They acted like normal ladies at first, worrying about how they looked. No, I'm fine without scales. Yours aren't needed either. I'm not cold. They still feel sorry for me, huh? They won't swim away. They said they'll stay here for a long time, I told the folks, hoping to calm them down, but I didn't think it would help. The females liked getting attention. They could feel the wonder and admiration of the spectators, so they didn't even think of diving underwater. Instead, they struck postures. I believe that moving to a higher level would let them change their shapes, but it looks like they'll always be Ran and Shao, stuck in these bodies. At least they're starting to talk better. In a few more years, they'll probably talk as much as Wang, who never stops talking. I talked to the dragons and my tribesmen for the rest of the day, and I was very tired. I fell asleep right away, without any changeover. The Wan Shi Tong Library. Since I had a close experience with Gaia, things have become better. Our lovemaking used to be just a few minutes of quick thrusting, but now it's full-blown intercourse. I like that she's sensitive. Who wouldn't want to hear real moans or watch a face twisted in ecstasy? But it wasn't good that I was always left unsatisfied. She saw this for herself, which is why she started asking Drea to come to bed with us. It made things a lot more fun. The first time we had a threesome was great. The girls' personalities probably had a lot to do with it. They didn't fight for attention, they just enjoyed being close to each other. This was especially true for Gaia, who had just lately learned about physical pleasure but was already willing to be its captive. No, she hasn't given up on having a kid. She just enjoys the process of conception today. Drea makes fun of Gaia by suggesting that even she wasn't so hungry for love, which makes Gaia quite embarrassed. Let us shift our focus away from romance. Recently, Daisy expressed a desire to explore the world, not merely through day trips, but through a comprehensive journey. It was essential for her to gain a comprehensive understanding of human culture and mindset. Ultimately, our society is composed entirely of ethereal beings and a father figure who is difficult to understand, which may have repercussions for her in the future. Additionally, Roku brought to my attention his concealed reserves located in almost every province. The allocation of those funds has the potential to revitalize the nation's economy. Indeed, prior to the ascent of the Baifeng family, there were instances of corrupt leadership in bandit factions. However, the situation was not as dire as during the rule of the Dao Fei. Nevertheless, they secured a significant portion of the profits. The majority of these funds will be allocated to support micro and small enterprises, with representatives from Baifeng overseeing the accounts. I will supply the necessary resources. The remaining funds will be allocated to an event aimed at identifying individuals who have devoted their lives to martial arts. I am optimistic that we will identify an exceptional individual among them, someone akin to Piandao or Avatar Kyoshi, who excelled in the complexities of Kai. The provincial rulers have been apprised of our plans. Every region will be allocated a week. Lao has formally issued a decree for the organization of martial arts festivals, directing the gathering of participants in designated cities. Having connections is advantageous. There are no advertising expenses, and I can provide valuable prizes for those who demonstrate exceptional performance. Certainly, it resembles the challenge of locating a needle within a haystack. If there were an exceptional master, discussions would already be underway, similar to Piandao, whose renown extended to the Earth Kingdom. However, as it is often stated, attempting something is not a form of suffering, so why not proceed? In the foreseeable future, I plan to undertake a similar initiative in the Fire Nation Islands. The initial spark has now developed into a significant fire, impacting numerous lives. Observe her expression, quite earnest, Drea remarked quietly, observing Daisy as she prepared for the trip. She even requested to borrow books from Wan Shi Tong, assuring that they would be returned in good condition. Our girl has matured significantly. At times, Drea seems to overlook that Daisy is not a complete spirit, I contemplated, pondering what captivates her in the ordinary. Our daughter's cognitive growth significantly exceeds her physical appearance. It is uncommon for human children. I believe she has assimilated some general knowledge from her mother's influence. It is unfortunate that she will soon attain the intermediate level, I remarked, aware that this will be accompanied by noticeable changes in her appearance. Daisy frequently cast us wary glances, clearly apprehensive about the possibility of another parental hug attack. Shortly thereafter, we departed from the library. We had to wait for Gaia, who was uncertain about how to manage her plants due to the library residents' unwillingness to tend to them. Prior to her mood declining, I proposed that we take them with us and plant them throughout our journey. The concept was well received, and Drea confidently showcased her innovative creation, a plant carriage designed to monitor its passengers. The flowers and flora she had meticulously cultivated over several months, occupying an entire library floor. What is the experience of embarking on a journey alongside three nature spirits? A significant amount is achievable, if not everything. We experienced no disturbances from insects, and our meals were plentiful, featuring a variety of vegetables, fruits, and berries. The highlight was observing Daisy's daily interactions as she formed new friendships. Not humans, not even spirits, but rather animals, as nature encompasses fauna as well. The initial guest was a diminutive elephant shrew. Attracted by the enticing aromas, it cautiously approached our elegant table. I do not possess the ability to communicate in animal languages. However, Drea and Gaia facilitated the translation of Daisy's dialogue with the long-trunked creature. The creature, often mischaracterized, was in fact a true gentleman, courteously requesting some berries to delight his family. "Dad, this gentleman is requesting that we share our food," Daisy remarked, not realizing that her mothers had already informed me. "I believe it won't be a significant loss for us," she added. "Please accept these to bring joy to your family." She collected a selection of treats, carefully packaging them in a plant pouch for convenient transport. The following day, the shrew returned with his family to express gratitude to Daisy. It is surprising to learn that such occurrences take place. Our second encounter was with a swamp inhabitant, a crocodilosum, a reptilian catfish. This intriguing creature terrorized Daisy as she rode it through the foggy swamp, a location we explored while preparing for the inaugural martial arts festival. During our recent discussions with Banyan, we took the opportunity to appreciate the numerous children within the tribe. The health I had restored motivated them to produce new offspring, featuring an unusually high percentage of gifted individuals. We explored several distinguished locations. A humorous situation once occurred. Shortly after traversing Snake Pass as a family, we almost encountered June and Shizuka. The challenge I face is my tendency to overlook, or hesitate to address, the existence of my other identities, each associated with different women, particularly given that they have only recently become acquainted. I prefer not to challenge their patience once more. Kaya is aware of the complete narrative, whereas Shizuka is only informed about Roku and Naruto, and she has deduced that information independently. Ultimately, Roku is a recognized entity, and it is improbable that a leader of another nation possesses an abundance of free time. At that moment, I informed Shizuka that I had the ability to divide myself, without specifying the number of bodies involved. I am committed to honesty with my loved ones, and I have assured them that I will make introductions once I have established control over the Fire Nation. Additionally, I believe Ursa may not be prepared to embrace the presence of other women at this time. The previous leader of the Kyoshi warriors and former mercenary demonstrated a commendable level of maturity by identifying shared interests. They extended their assistance to Roku, growing weary of their time spent in Omashu. Nonetheless, I was not anticipating their presence at this moment. "Those lovely aunts remind me of Dad," Daisy reflected, observing June and Shizuka as they walked toward the pass. "Shizuka, if I recall correctly, she's, also, your mother," Drea attempted to articulate delicately. "The other is an additional aunt who is close to your father," she improved on her explanation the second time. "Why did we not extend our greetings to them?" Daisy inquired, narrowing her eyes at me. "It's not as straightforward as it seems," I attempted to deflect. "Am I perhaps making this more complex than necessary?" "Lying is not acceptable, father," she stated, employing the formal address of father, rather than her customary dad, indicating her awareness of the situation. "Observe that bird reptile," I indicated towards a tree. "We have not encountered that coloration previously." Indeed, I discreetly exited the conversation. I never lied, just omitted details. This moment highlighted the significance of trust. However, I prefer not to disclose it suddenly, so I am patiently awaiting the appropriate moment to share all the details. Another inquiry. What is the rationale for pursuing combat knowledge associated with Kai? I have reached a limit. The growth of my energy source is consistent, however, its utilization is limited in scope. Throughout this period, I have diligently practiced the techniques of Piandao, the Yu-Yang archers, and Avatar Kyoshi. I have achieved successes by integrating them into a unified system. The task presented significant challenges, primarily due to the issue of technique override. For instance, employing any method beyond Kyoshi's enhancement technique would result in an automatic reset, thereby creating an opportunity for the new technique. It resembles the challenge of attempting to launch a second application on a single tasking DOS system. With time, I enhanced my control, enabling the concurrent application of all techniques. Physical enhancements combined with Piandao's dynamic energy bursts, alongside the Yu-Yang archer's sharp vision. I have developed a single new technique independently. The primary and soul barrier to realizing all the techniques my imagination envisions is the potential threat to my life. A single minor error could lead to significant consequences. There is a significant risk of severe injury or even fatality. Kai does not overlook mistakes. I am still taken aback by my actions. A single error in the practice of Kai healing could have led to significant consequences. I was fortunate to possess a strong foundation in basic water healing techniques. I cannot envision the potential outcomes in any other scenario. Subsequently, I regained my composure. Having been acquainted with this energy for years, I can confidently refer to myself as a skilled apprentice, if not a master. But I now approach untrodden paths with caution. The new technique isn't particularly creative. I channel Kai throughout my body, enveloping myself in its energy, thereby enhancing my resilience to elemental damage. Do not mistake it for physical harm. A conqueror's thrown rock will still have the capacity to overpower me. However, if a conqueror or spirit attempts to seize me using water, they will expend significantly more energy, as Kai effectively resists and repels foreign energy. My green fire performs a comparable function. I believe it will be particularly effective against pure spirits. I have concluded that a conqueror's fire is primarily a tangible phenomenon, rooted in chemical reactions, whereas spiritual fire is dependent on energy. This explains why a bender's fire can effortlessly breach protective barriers, whereas a spirit's fire aimed at me diminishes in strength by 50% immediately. Is it bending energy or is it spiritual? What factors contribute to their mutual resistance? In an alternate universe, where the boy with arrows exists, the world remains united, and now spirits and humans, who have harnessed Kai, are engaged in intense conflict. I have made the decision to revisit this matter with Wan Shi Tong. Southern Earth Kingdom. A newly built arena. The midday sun was exceptionally intense today. The inhabitants of the southernmost province, positioned on basic stone benches, experienced a lack of comfort. Had they been indoors, they would have been overwhelmed by the oppressive scent of numerous perspiring individuals long ago. The event took place outdoors, where a gentle, cool breeze provided a welcome sense of relief. It is admirable to observe the resourceful individuals who have prepared gallons of a local beverage reminiscent of kvass. The beverage, referred to as kisu, was also derived from grain and provided a similarly refreshing effect. The kisu vendors experienced a significant demand today, expressing their gratitude in silence towards the young lord who had orchestrated the event. Having journeyed through numerous provinces, you must be familiar with this affluent young man. Could you share any intriguing details about him? One man inquired of the individual seated next to him. His attention was consistently drawn to the two elegant women accompanying the young man. He had already categorized Yo as the privileged child of a prosperous family, someone who, in his view, had not accomplished anything independently. I am not familiar with him, the second man replied with a shrug. He was also intrigued by the origins of this individual, whose influence extended across the entire Earth Kingdom. To his knowledge, this was not the inaugural tournament of its kind. On each occasion, the rulers or their trusted aides were personally involved. This figure captivated more than just this pair. Some had already compiled the extensive expenditures this family of four incurred across each province. It is reasonable to conclude that Yo was either the illegitimate son of Lao, the current king, or a bastard of the former king, Hui. The audience's focus extended beyond the enigmatic and affluent family positioned on the raised platform. A diverse group of participants engaged in the competitions, demonstrating their skills in earthbending and physical abilities across all age groups and genders, including elders, girls, boys, men, and women. The experience was thoroughly engaging, compelling them to endure the intense heat of the sun. Several months have elapsed since we commenced our journey across the country. We explored several provinces, however, I was unable to locate the distinctive individuals I was searching for. Indeed, there were earthbending masters who could rival Toph, as well as individuals with unique physical characteristics such as the boulder. A man I referred to as Mr. Fantastic exhibited an extraordinary ability to contort his body into remarkable shapes, seemingly devoid of any rigid structure. While the experience was intriguing and informative, it lacked significance for me without a deeper connection. During my initial explorations of this world as Roku, I encountered an attack from a creature resembling a badgermully. In a moment of intense emotion, I acquired not only gold but also valuable collectibles. At that moment, I chose not to count the money. I was aware it was a substantial amount, and that sufficed. I have observed that my perspective on finances has evolved in a distinctive manner throughout my life. It probably originates from my experience at the North Pole, where the significance of money diminished. The funds exceeded my initial expectations significantly. If I do not utilize them now, I may not have the opportunity to do so in the future. The origins of the speculation regarding my affinity for financial expenditure can be traced back to this point. I contributed a portion to the leaders under Lau's influence, enhanced tournament prize pools, and guaranteed that every participant who advanced past the initial rounds received a consolation prize. It appears that certain individuals may have participated in multiple competitions, tracking my movements from one province to another. I provided several individuals with complete bags of coins to facilitate the establishment of their own martial arts schools. Daisy's acquisition of an extensive quantity of goods during the journey was particularly entertaining. Her compassionate nature motivated her to support individuals facing financial difficulties. Subsequently, the newly acquired items were allocated to various towns or villages we came across. I was pleased to observe that, over time, the number of individuals in need has diminished. The outcomes of my collaboration with Lau were clearly evident. "Dad, it seems you're deep in thought once more, aren't you?" Daisy gently tickled my palm with her small fingers. "The finals are about to commence," she announced, gesturing towards the arena with her other hand. Two figures now stood there, the first and, to date, the only individuals employing Kai. "I have returned," I said with a smile directed at my daughter, shifting my focus to the two gentlemen. I anticipated returning without any achievements. Today's tournament was among the final events. Only 2 provinces were left. I dedicated a significant portion of my time to contemplation, only regaining my focus when the 2 individuals I had identified as finalists entered the arena. On the left side stood a poised middle-aged man, prepared for confrontation. His gaze was instantly attracted to the 5 wooden swords, 2 secured at his belt and 3 positioned on his back. On the opposite side, a young man with a blindfold extended his limbs with composure. Another individual without sight. "Prepare to remain vigilant. This concluding match promises to be intense," the referee announced, occasionally wiping the sweat from his brow with his sleeve. "No further delays. To the left, we have Bei the Slasher. To the right, Sean the Seer. Are you ready? Let the competition commence." In that moment, Bei sprang from his position, firmly grasping his seemingly innocuous sword. He initiated a rapid offensive. One might assume that seizing the weapon would conclude the confrontation, yet the blind man skillfully evaded his adversary's relentless onslaught of attacks. It appeared that he possessed an exceptional ability to anticipate future events. It was evident that Sean initiated his movements slightly ahead of Bei. "Father, you have already informed me about Bei. He channels his Kai into his sword, enabling it to slice through even iron," Daisy said, pulling at the hem of my shirt. "How is it that the visually impaired individual perceives his surroundings? He is certainly not an earthbender." Based on my observations, Sean has developed the ability to utilize Kai to enhance his auditory perception and refine his olfactory senses, I articulated, highlighting the dynamic energy surrounding his nose and ears. The slight movements of his ears and the recurrent sniffing provided clear indications, leaving little room for alternative interpretations. Certainly, this will require additional analysis following the competition. I find Sean's abilities to be particularly intriguing. When integrated with the keen insight of the Kyoshi warriors, this has the potential to establish a system of enhancements while mitigating the risks associated with chakra opening. I plan to create a foundation for Kai mastery. Numerous individuals aspire to possess bending abilities. Therefore, it is worthwhile to provide them with an alternative solution. This process will require time, and all aspects will necessitate comprehensive verification and documentation. During this period, I successfully reached out to Wan Shi Tong to inquire about his knowledge concerning Kai. The information was limited. At that stage, he was merely starting to navigate the realm as an ordinary higher spirit. He was not endowed with the same level of power as Tui and Le. He provided valuable insights. During his pursuit of knowledge, he encountered an unfamiliar region, a village populated by distinctive individuals. This took place during the period when humans sought refuge on lion turtles. However, not all individuals sought sanctuary on those vast living islands. Numerous others endured amidst throngs of spirits. His curiosity brought him to the village entrance, where the residents confronted him without uttering a single word. Their formidable physiques, unique communication methods, and extraordinary skills compelled him to engage in combat to acquire as much knowledge as possible. It was only after a year that he recognized these individuals as experts in Kai. The individuals, radiating a subtle green luminescence, exhibited increased speed and strength. Their strikes caused considerable damage, and with every impact, his energy appeared to diminish. After enduring 20 minutes, he withdrew, injured. For an extended period, his thoughts were consumed by these unusual individuals who exhibited no fear of spirits and were even prepared to confront them unarmed. At that point, he commenced his investigation into the issue. As time progressed, his observations persisted, and his fascination with humanity deepened. Shortly, Wan Shi Tong linked his observations with the energy flowing through the lion turtles, yet another enigma of this world. As an ancient spirit endowed with extensive abilities, he was capable of meticulously observing a diverse array of individuals. He discovered that individuals residing under the protection of lion turtles consistently exhibited a basic ability for bending. In contrast, individuals residing among spirits exhibited no aptitude in that domain. The timing of this division remains uncertain, however, it is evident that the ability to bend serves to impede the manipulation of Kai. In order to endure, individuals sought the assistance of the lion turtles. I have contemplated this matter personally. Piandao, the Kyoshi warriors, and the Yu-Yang archers may not possess bending abilities, yet they demonstrate exceptional proficiency in harnessing alternative forms of energy. Kyoshi and I may be regarded as exceptions, as we do not entirely conform to the definition of ordinary. There is additional information to consider. Lion turtles are acknowledged as experts in energy bending, also referred to as Kai manipulation. By leveraging their expertise, they assisted individuals in temporarily accessing their talents, facilitating their body's adaptation to this novel and unfamiliar energy. The same occurs when activating chakras. After consistently knocking on the door, Kai ultimately reveals its potential. Initially, it may have been necessary to return the gift to the lion turtle. However, Wan Shi Tong holds the view that individuals were not restricted in any way and could retain their bending talent at any moment. It is probable that individuals became accustomed to the existing protection and perceived no necessity for any alterations. Centuries later, Wan, the inaugural avatar, was born, influencing the waters, and the repercussions of his actions continue to impact the world. Wan Shi Tong did not record this in manuscripts or books, as much of it remains unverified, and he firmly opposes anything lacking support. What happened to the individuals who possessed extensive knowledge about Kai? What is the current location of all the lion turtles? What circumstances led to one of them assisting Avatar Aang during his time of need? What are the reasons for the opposing nature of Kai and bending in certain areas while they seem to support each other in others? Following the narrative of the Spirit of Knowledge, I found myself with a multitude of new inquiries. Sean the Seer is the winner. The referee announced, striving to be heard over the enthusiastic crowd. The result aligned with my expectations. Both opponents demonstrated exceptional combat skills, however, Bei faced constraints due to his own capabilities. Every 2 to 3 minutes, he needed to change swords, as the previous ones disintegrated into splinters. Following the conclusion of the prize-giving ceremony, I engaged in discussions with the finalists. I clearly communicated my interest and was prepared to offer a substantial compensation for their collaboration in examining their proven capabilities. The additional funds were positively acknowledged, and our partnership commenced without delay. Shortly, my collection of Kai techniques expanded with additional examples. Sean demonstrated considerable skill as a theorist, even illustrating the energy channels in the head that generate the intended effect. I promptly made the decision to extend an invitation to him in Omashu. Someone of his caliber could not be overlooked. As an enthusiastic swordsman, Bei had always desired the finest blade. He stated that the event occurred spontaneously. During a training session with a wooden practice sword, he encountered an inexplicable sensation, as though he could perceive the inner workings of the prop weapon. The subsequent swing seamlessly sliced through the training dummy. It was only later that he recognized the sword he had wielded that day was newly crafted, still retaining tree sap, which gave it an appearance of vitality for a time. By channeling his Kai into the sword, he achieved a temporary fusion that enhanced its properties. Undoubtedly, this considerably reduced the lifespan of the sword. He graciously declined my invitation to embark on a journey into the realm of Kai together. He is responsible for managing a substantial educational institution that has been inherited through his family lineage. He would be pleased to arrange another meeting. This fresh information will keep me busy for a while. Next time, I'll plan something similar for the Fire Nation archipelago. Perhaps I'll uncover something unusual there, too. 100 years after the extermination of the air nomads. Roku. Omashu. Thanks to my circle, life in Omashu went by fast and without monotony. Several times a week, Bumi would pull a prank, and Toph and Suki would argue constantly, which I was able to guide in a more amicable way. Every day was full of events. June and Shizuka were the only respites from the chaos, and they rapidly bonded. My backside had become accustomed to the uncomfortable throne. I was pleased to see that the city's citizens had accepted me. I did not hesitate to organize multiple public sparring bouts with Bumi to demonstrate my expertise of metal and lava bending. I had perfected lava bending to its maximum capacity with earth bending, removing the necessity for fire bending. "Hello," strangers would say to me. "Have a good day, Lord Roku." A beautiful woman purred, giving me a direct glance. Smiling and nodding, I assumed she wasn't aware of the scary women guarding my honor. June and Shizuka didn't want our family to grow too quickly, and they might give persistent ladies a sharp talking to. They should be somewhere in the Southern Earth Kingdom right now, working on my projects. Their energetic personalities wouldn't allow them sit idly in the city, so they took on tasks to help me. I should get out into the city more often. I didn't think I was so vain, but the people's attention appeared to give me the strength to improve the city given to me. People rushed about their business. The incessant clatter of numerous carts permeated the air. After a while in Omashu, you cease noticing the noise, which fades into the background. The postal system had been entirely renovated, with the number of routes increasing by 30%. Some residential buildings had to be rebuilt, but nobody complained. Everyone liked the ease of rapid transportation in such a huge city. I soon made my way to the palace using the city's underground passageways. Suki and I had planned to do some martial arts training today. Our sparring took place in a specially equipped hall with a floor covered in tatami mats, as Kyoshi warriors lay equal emphasis on grappling tactics. It is worth noting that only Kyoshi Island has a fully operational training facility for this martial style. "Ready, Suki?" I asked the already trained girl in a tight sports uniform. Shizuka mentioned to her daughter that she enjoyed when girls wore outfits that highlighted their feminine curves. "Get ready to lose, Roku." Suki smiled and stretched her neck. For the following hour, our bodies were constantly crushed against each other. Suki recently appreciated performing extremely particular actions in which her body rubbed against mine. Today, my body reacted to her activities, revealing a portion of me even through my clothes. Suki's smile suggested that was exactly what she wanted. I lost another opportunity because I was too preoccupied with Suki's crotch area, where the thin fabric of her tights or leggings plainly highlighted her enticingly peeping labia. It appears that was the plan. I thought as she successfully pinned me. The next thing I knew, I was lying down. She delivered a well-executed throw with a roll, but at the last time, her back slipped slightly to the right, and she virtually sat on my face with her privates. She definitely wanted to do that. My nose pressed into her intimate area, stretching the already tight fabric and threatening to tear it. The familiar feminine aroma caught my nostrils immediately, identical to Shizuka's, and she began grinding her hips into my face, literally impaling herself on it. Suki's soft, sweet groan resonated clearly through the empty, enormous hall. My nose could already feel the fabric beginning to dampen. Suki's hand quickly ran the length of my noticeable bulge through my pants. She surprised me with her brazen axe. This is where it was heading. She turned 17 this year, and her body was probably sending clear indications that she wanted to be intimate with a male. We could have maintained our mutual happiness, but a third party intervened. Quick footsteps signaled the opening of the hall doors. "Suki. Roku. What are you doing?" Toph inquired, her cheeks likely flushed with emotion and her voice conveying her confusion. "We were just practicing a move," Suki said, releasing me. I could have freed myself, but I chose to remain in her lovely embrace. "Maybe you'll try it sometime." Suki smirked at her, evidently pleased, a damp spot visible in her groin. "Pervert," Toph whispered beneath her breath. June had already informed me of Toph's condition, in which surging hormones dictated unambiguous instructions to find a sexual partner. However, their deeper chats made June understand that Toph was probably not psychologically ready for sex yet. Yes, the desire existed, but it was fueled by her hormones. It was better to wait a little longer for Toph to make a more informed decision. "That was an extremely productive training session," Suki exclaimed, dismissing Toph's comments. She skipped out of the hall after quickly nibbling my lips. "I'll go change, too," I said, breaking the uneasy silence in the hallway. After a moment of reflection, I approached Toph and kissed her forehead. That was sufficient to relieve her anxiety and unhappiness. Today is Naruto's birthday, which coincides with my and my other body's 18th birthdays. To maintain secret, Yo and Vanna were given different birth dates, but it has been tradition that Roku and Naruto were born on the same day. My birthdays are always celebrated quietly, with close friends and family. And here's my gift to the birthday boy, Bumi said, removing a cloth to reveal high-quality Earth Kingdom warrior gear. I immediately decided to put it on. It appeared very pompous. Now you look like a real king, Bumi remarked. I'll give you my gift tomorrow, Suki explained. I'll tell you the rest when we're alone, she teased Toph and June, who smiled. The others had already given me their gifts of clothing, weapons, and books. The celebration was vibrant, but June and Shizuka's lingering looks were disturbing. They likely attended one of Yo's competitions. Only the deaf would not have known about them. Yo found it difficult to identify anyone in the large crowd, but he did notice something familiar. Despite my efforts to change my body's behavior, close friends and family may still detect some habits or characteristics. The following day. Entrance to the Cave of Two Lovers. Suki had prepared a surprise for me, which she said would await me at the legendary Oma and Shu Cave. She said she'd come from the other side so we could meet in the center. Love is the light in the darkness, I read from the bas-relief near the entrance. Suki knows romance, I said. So, she wants to officially define our relationship. That was where things were going. And I am not opposed. Her emotions have an impact on me because of our relationship. When experiencing love, happiness, and joy, it's difficult not to reciprocate. Following the sparkling gems that illuminated my path, I wondered what Suki had prepared. Suki was already inside the cave, at the intersection of the two trails, laying out a blanket she had taken with her. There were some snacks and tea available in case they became hungry. Seems everything's ready, she thought, pushing gently on the elastic fabric around her hips, which was biting into her skin. He was attracted to tight attire, which was easy to notice. Her body had long sought a specific person, someone who had been with her since she was awake. She realized that words of love weren't her thing. They were meaningless when you were ready to sacrifice your body. Wasn't that proof of your dedication to being with someone? I hope Toph won't be too upset, she reasoned. As much as she mocked her, she couldn't deny that her new companion had grown on her. Toph's desire to achieve greater heights of expertise connected with her own. She didn't want to break the link they were just beginning to establish, but she couldn't wait any longer. She recently suggested to Toph about what she was about to give Roku. Since Toph had not voiced any objections, that might help to smooth things down. Who's here? Her reflexes were set to punish whoever had sneaked up behind her and grabbed her, but when she recognized his voice, she relaxed. And the grasp was simply a hug. Easy there, Suki, Roku remarked, smiling. I understand. I, too, get lost in thought, he said, unable to let go of her. Hi to you, too, she said, turning her face to him and kissing his neck as close as she could. Guess what gift awaits you? She inquired, her eyes narrowing. Is it you? He whispered into Suki's ear, his hands starting to explore her body. Under that robe, nothing's holding back your breasts, and your inviting hips are ready to trap my member in their clutches. His tantalizing actions and sensual words sent a chill down her spine. Today, I want to be yours, she finally replied, placing his erect manhood between her thighs. I knew it, he whispered, pausing to kiss her neck and shoulders. He lowered her robe to the floor and softly squeezed one breast with each hand. Suki and Naruto began their romance. For long hours, the cave walls resonated with the intense sounds of two hot bodies intertwining. Hopefully, Oma and Shu's souls have passed on and did not see the events in their sacred spot. Roku. Research town near Jailing. Check the bindings on the second airship. And don't forget to inspect the fuel levels. The mechanist's wife's loud, commanding voice repeated every few minutes. She deserves a raise, Lao said with a chuckle. She's been handling 2 jobs for so long, no matter how overworked she gets, he regretted. We couldn't find somebody to take over even a portion of Rin's tasks. That smart woman had much too many talents. All of the necessary conditions had to be met before the world saw the first steerable airship. That is how the concept was born. To establish a new town near Jailing, complete with all necessary facilities for scientific research and development. This allowed Earth University students and faculty to study without having to travel large distances. As Lao once stated, the future belongs to innovation. His words nevertheless sounded hostile toward the Fire Nation. Years of conflict and persecution are difficult to forget. Even knowing that another version of himself might govern the Fire Nation in the near future did not make him feel any better. I'm delighted his efforts don't jeopardize my ambitions. Lao is driven by a desire to demonstrate to the rest of the world that the Earth Kingdom can produce geniuses and be technological leaders. Walking through the newly erected town, I noticed a swarm of workers and students crowded around 10 airships. They were far from elegant. These hastily built watercraft were better suited for reconnaissance because they couldn't reach high speeds or carry a large load. However, plans were well beginning to build a full-fledged airship. Air travel would gradually become more accessible around the world. So, a small base is ready to service the airships? I inquired, gaining critical information from Lao. Due to limited fuel, direct, non-stop flights to the Fire Nation Islands were not practicable. Instead, a refueling stop was required. Yes, the staging point is right by the coastline, a stone's throw from the archipelago. They'll decide when to take off from there, he said with humor. From what I could tell, Lao would have gladly gone to bomb the Fire Nation himself, but his status and commitments precluded him from doing so. I wonder what their faces will look like when they see our aerial marvel. By the way, your name is listed among the creators. Rin said you inspired her to build the airship. Lao gave me a hug. Let's keep walking. When else will I get to leave Ba Sing Se? I didn't say no to my old friend. I understand how much he does for the country and my ambitions. If only the Sage's people would cluster nicely. I thought optimistically. This allowed us to make better use of our limited amount of bombs. Yu Dao. Mayor Morishida's estate. Mayor Morishida recalled a day in the past as he watched the heroic back of the once great general. As a child, he had witnessed Prince Iroh, who was still young, marching off to attack the Earth Kingdom. Are you ready to return home, Lord Iroh? He inquired calmly, addressing the Fire Lord's brother. Yes, Iroh said absently, as if his thoughts was somewhere else. Our people face a serious problem, he said, snapping back into reality. Ozai asked to gather as many forces as possible. I hope you won't mind watching over Prince Zuko, my old friend. He turned to his companion, his expression softening into a gentle smile. Zuko can feel at home here, the mayor said, looking toward the window. Outside, a well-kept garden brimming with vegetation was evident. Prince Zuko and the mayor's daughter, Kori, sat beside a tiny pond. She was passionately telling him something, and their laughing echoed intermittently. Only the blind could overlook the chemistry between them. To think how it all began. Iroh smiled, recalling Zuko and Kori's conflicts. There are so many differences between them, from their perspectives on life to their upbringing. Perhaps this is why they became so close. Forgive me, Zuko, he said softly to himself. The death of Lu Ten had left a huge hole in his soul. To cope, he wanted to see his nephew represent his late son's dreams. You'll make me proud, father. The world will know the greatest Fire Lord Lu Ten. His son had loved to remark, and the old fool had relished at his words. Better if he'd wasted his life on pleasures, like most admirals and generals' children, but he was still here, at his side, alive and healthy. I hope Zuko accepts Yu Dao as his new home, Iroh thought with relief. He knew the capital was a cesspool, and he didn't want his nephew to suffer the same fate. Soon, the young people noticed their elders acting as if caught doing something wrong. They followed inside, still feeling a little ashamed. Uncle, are you leaving already? Is it that bad? Zuko inquired, having just entered. Of course, few people were unaware of what was going on in the islands. The retreat of troops from the Earth Kingdom's frontiers revealed the severity of the conflict. Don't worry, I'll return to Yu Dao soon, and we can travel again, he remarked, casting a mischievous glance at the lost Zuko, who returned Kori's gaze. Youth. Iroh shook his head. The lovely Kori can join us too, he said with a knowing smile. Kori quickly ducked behind Zuko, as his pale cheeks turned scarlet. Yes, it'll be much more fun with three of us, Zuko said, fabricating a solid reason to agree. Too bad I can't go with you, I'd show them my firebending skills. He tightened his fists. His parents had said no to his homecoming unanimously and sternly. There will always be wars in the world. In your lifetime, you'll have your chance to fight, Iroh told the crowd. Master Wan said the same thing, Zuko remarked, rolling his eyes. He had not hesitated to write to Wan, begging him to urge his parents to reconsider their minds, but instead received several pages of philosophical babbling. Then I hope you can protect Mom and Azula, he exclaimed, his expression becoming serious. You can count on me, Iroh said firmly. The Northern Water Tribe. The battle on the Fire Nation Islands seems to affect everyone. I contemplated joining it. The foundation for future international cooperation needed to be laid. Years of hatred left few happy memories. Building is preferable to destroying. So I designed a fairly simple plan. I planned to join Ozai's side directly, taking advantage of the spirit's restricted capacity to change their form. What could be greater than an oppressed people's representative daring to help their enemies? Especially if he actively employed his waterbending healing abilities to save someone's father, brother, or kid. However, the world refused to comply with my wishes. A week ago, I was in my office doing ordinary paperwork. Some documents simply couldn't pass me by, but it's reassuring that there are fewer and fewer of them. Midway through this exciting process, unexpected guests came. After knocking and waiting for my permission, the very serious Zhang and Paku entered, surrounded by numerous other young men. I raised an eyebrow in question and waited for them to speak. We asked the chief's permission to go help the Fire Nation. Zhang declared directly, kneeling low. The others repeated after him, maintaining an imploring posture. My mind raced with innumerable thoughts and questions, none of which were pleasant. I'm becoming increasingly concerned about the Order of the White Lotus Information Network. I didn't observe anything unusual while in the city, but how do they communicate? Along with the two masters of separate elements were numerous of the former admiral's troops, as well as a few of promising young benders. You may raise your heads, I said, waving my hands and concealing my true emotions in both my voice and my face. Overall, I know the situation in the archipelago, I said later. But the Water Tribe can't afford to lose people, I said, because we are so few in comparison to other nations. Give me time to think, I said thoughtfully, ending the call. That's all we ask, Paku said, bowing again. Watching the visitors' receding backs, I devised a fresh strategy. Of course, it's upsetting that I couldn't locate their communication channels, but it's reassuring that members of the secret order came to request permission. They may have just left to restore balance and order. Ozai has already been informed that the Order's forces will arrive to assist, I reasoned, knowing that the secret society comprises various nations. He'll undoubtedly be ready to see water and earth benders. A few days later, I told Paku and Zhang that I was willing to meet them halfway, only I would join them. They tried for a long time to persuade me to stay, but I stood fast. The effect would definitely be far larger if the people's leader battled tirelessly alongside those whose hands were stained with the blood of our brethren. And, of course, I could operate at full vigor without hiding. What else would a chief do? Why would I go there if I was weak? Several days passed in preparation for leaving. The ship was filled to the brim with food and medicinal remedies. Are we ready? I inquired Shay, Zhang's steadfast right-hand man. Only a few of the Admiral's men sailed with us. Not that the others didn't want to follow him, but he prevented them from doing so. The rest already had families, some even with children. Zhang did not want to put the soldiers who had been through fire and water with him in undue danger. We can set sail, Shay nodded, issuing the final order. The ship's sails bore the order's insignia, a white lotus. We needed to replace the old ones so that future allies would not attack us. None of the crew noticed Naruto's chilly glimmer that flashed and faded as he gazed at the white lotus. Such independent organizations shouldn't exist, he said, unless they're under my complete control. It's time to bring them into the light. Fire Nation. Shu Jing, honestly, I thought you'd wear the clothes sent by the Order of the White Lotus, Fat, his regular aide and buddy, told him. Nah, that wouldn't be right, Piandao said, shaking his head as he turned away from his old armor that had been by his side for so long. Those models aren't made anymore, so you could say they're like collector's items now. The last time I took them off was when I got fed up with our nation's politics, he reminisced. I honestly thought I'd never put them on again. Fat sat quietly, letting his old friend reminisce about those long-ago days. So, how's the gathering of Order members coming along? He asked after a short pause. He quickly reported that over 1,000 people have already made it to the base, which is about 70% of the whole military group. I believe that in the next few days, we're going to see the percentage of arrivals hit 90. The Order gets how risky it is with the Sage's influence on the rise. I hope Ozai steps up his game tomorrow. You know, the day of the Black Sun seems like the ideal time for an attack, Piandao said, a hint of worry in his voice. I don't think they'll take that chance. On the day of the eclipse, they'll also lose their main weapon. Firebending. Fat had a different perspective. Sure thing, just keep in touch with the Order. I'm going to reach out to my old army buddies to see what Ozai's up to, Piandao said, taking another look at the burgundy-colored armor. Before you know it, you'll be surrounded by foreign blood once more. But you know what? This time, those enemies deserve to return to the earth again. Fire Nation. The throne room of the Fire Lord. Today, the throne room was packed with government officials. People from all walks of life, including admirals, generals, and heads of powerful families, were on edge, glancing nervously at the huge double doors as if they were waiting for some important news to come through. A lot of them were firebenders, and they were feeling the pressure. The moon, getting in the way of the sun's light, was stirring up some feelings of unease. You could see it on their faces, all the experiences they've had, and now they looked a bit uneasy. It felt like, all of a sudden, they were completely incapacitated. For many, losing their bending abilities felt even worse than losing a limb. Some folks gave it a shot to spark a little flame, but it just didn't work out. The Kai was still moving through their channels, keeping their bodies warm, but they just couldn't create fire. Those 8 minutes felt like they stretched on forever, like a real test of patience. Unwelcome thoughts started to sneak in. What if their bending never came back? This is not great, Juan thought, feeling like their abilities were out of reach too. Got it? I'm on it. No enemy movements detected. A soldier burst in, just as the eclipse wrapped up. They felt a wave of relief wash over them as they got their powers back, and the good news just made it even better. Many people were skeptical that the Fire Sages would actually go after the heavily defended capital, but with those kinds of passionate folks, you just never know what might happen. All right, let's keep the meeting going, Ozai said, his voice firm. People who knew the Fire Lord could see he was acting differently, but they just thought it was because of the stress from getting ready for war and everything that comes with it. So, the Fire Sages have dug in on Crescent Island, huh? That's where they've got most of their fleet hanging out, the newly appointed admiral said. As things heated up, a lot of the Sages' followers decided to leave their posts, bringing some loyalists along with them. So, the troops that are left are divided up between Island 43 and Waterfall Island. We need to go after the enemy forces before Sozin's comet shows up, another official chimed in. The firebending of each sage is even better than that of the masters. They'll probably get even stronger. We've got the upper hand right now, let's not take any chances. The people who had encountered the sages nodded. One sage could take on 5 or 6 skilled masters in a fight. What would happen if they got more power? For hours, top officers and officials chatted away, each one handling their own area of expertise. Before long, everyone got the lowdown on the enemy and the game plan for the attack. The last point caught everyone's eye. Every little detail was important, since the future of their nation was at stake. There have only been a handful of times in history when the Fire Nation gathered all its forces together. They called back the ships that were blocking the Earth Kingdom's waters, left the border fortresses behind, and just a small group stayed in the oldest colonies. The propaganda against the Fire Sages ramped up. People everywhere were speaking out against the spiritual authority. Did you hear that they called back some retired soldiers to serve again? Every influential family had to pitch in with warriors, money, or materials. The Order of the White Lotus was planning to launch an attack on Waterfall Island, and only a handful of Fire Nation citizens were on board with it. The Dragon of the West was already working with the Order to lead the operation. The Fire Nation would take care of the other 2 islands. When a mission was successful, the teams would help out in other places. The sun was setting as the meeting wrapped up. As people started to head out, Wan's words stopped them right in their tracks. I hope you can forgive what I did, Wan said, kneeling. While I was traveling, I came across a sea dragon that decided to follow me. I knew it could be hunted, so I decided to stay quiet. I can't keep this to myself anymore in this tough spot. A sea dragon? Do they even exist? Whispers started to spread. My great-great-grandfather took one down. His records say it let out huge clouds of steam. Someone bragged. Hiding information like that can get you in trouble, Ozai said, his tone becoming gentler. So, according to Fire Nation law, you have to report any dragon sightings you come across. Well, since you've provided such great service, you can go ahead and keep the dragon. If it helps in war, it'll be considered a national treasure and safeguarded by law. Soon enough, power will be mine, Wan mused, pretending to be grateful. He and Ozai had already talked about this between themselves. They set up the scene to boost Ozai's power. Some folks in the army questioned his choices, and nobody was keen on the idea of betrayal. These displays helped to reduce risk while highlighting Ozai's power and kindness. Once the formal exit was done, officials were all over Wan, eager to catch a glimpse of the dragon. Dragons were almost like legends. It had been ages since anyone had actually seen one. Okay, Wan gave in. Come on, let's head to the port. Before long, they found themselves at the water's edge. People walking by, intrigued by the parade, decided to join in with the crowd. For a moment, everything around me just disappeared. As the sun set, the dragon's huge, elegant shape was simply stunning. Lots of people got into dragons, and eventually, they came together to start a movement aimed at protecting the amazing creatures that brought firebending to their nation. Fire Nation capital. 1. Azula's coronation felt a bit hurried. Ozai had a lot on his plate, but this event still needed some focus. The palace square was buzzing with people, all scratching their heads over the Fire Lord's choice to hand the throne to his daughter. They understood that the battles ahead would be tough, but was this needed? Not many were aware of what Ozai was going through. His mind was a mix of foreign thoughts and his own, all jumbled together. A guy like Ozai, who was all about control, over his people and himself, definitely wouldn't let anyone pull his strings. I, Fire Lord Ozai, am handing over my power to Princess Azula, the next Fire Lord. His voice echoed throughout the square. Azula's icy look stayed the same. She already had a presence that was just as commanding as her father's. The crowd's early skepticism about having a female ruler started to disappear. They just couldn't handle any disagreement. If Ozai were to pass away, they would need a clear and recognized leader. It feels like just yesterday you were sitting all by yourself under that tree, I thought, keeping my distance from the ceremony. The crowd cheered for their new ruler for about 5 minutes before they started to break up and go their separate ways. The capital was always buzzing. This was their main hub. Just be careful out there. Azula's going to need a solid advisor, Ozai mentioned as he walked past me. Asterisk. Wow, that was unexpected. He pretty much told me not to put my life on the line. We weren't exactly friends, but he definitely appreciated what I could do. I've always felt that what I do has helped the country in some way. After the ceremony, a bunch of people crowded around Azula, all trying to get on her good side. It just wouldn't click with her. I popped back to my estate for a quick visit to feed my golden dragon hatchling. As I softly ran my fingers over the egg's beautiful designs, I found myself curious about when it would finally hatch. I was thinking that Ran and Xiao might have some insight into how long it takes for golden dragons to emerge. Hatch soon, I said softly. I could be an old man by that time. I went back to the palace after hiding the egg. I was just lying there, all set to jump in and help whenever needed. It turns out that the Sage Temple's interference got in the way of Dree's listening devices. Getting in was a no-go. Every nook and cranny was under surveillance. Dree's ear had sprouted little legs to make its way into the pagoda. Lord Van, Princess. Fire Lord Azula is waiting for you in the small throne room, a young guard said, a bit nervously. A lot of people still aren't quite used to the new title, I mentioned, giving his shoulder a friendly pat. As I strolled down the main corridor, I spotted a new painting. It was a tradition that every Fire Lord's portrait had to be shown. Azula's icy, golden eyes seemed to gaze right out from the canvas. The portraits of the previous lords were already a lot for people to take in as they walked by, and Azula's just made it even more intense. In the throne room, those same cold eyes suddenly sparkled with warmth. It's you, she said, sinking back into the throne. I figured it was just another yes man. They wear you out, you've got the reins now. How about we make flattery illegal? I joked, stepping behind her. She paused for a moment, thinking it over. Nah, there are times when I actually find their groveling kind of entertaining. She sighed, leaning into my touch. You seem a bit tense. Here, let me help, I said, giving her neck a gentle massage. Do you think I'll make a good ruler? She asked out of the blue. Absolutely the best, I said with confidence. Thanks, she said softly, covering my hands with hers. The room was quiet, the sort of silence that spoke volumes without a single word being said. What's up? Why did you give me a call? I forgot, she said, but her racing pulse told a different story. I can't bring myself to say I needed his strength, asterisk. Don't push yourself too hard, I said, gently running my fingers through her hair, making her shiver a little. I need to run some errands. Catch you at dinner. Things got pretty busy in the following days. They loaded up the ships with supplies and got them fixed up. I put in a lot of effort during my training. Ursa just wouldn't let me go, wearing herself out every single day. It seems like she wanted to have a baby, holding onto a piece of me in that way. I never intended to go, but something was charming about her determination, so I quietly took on her challenges. Just a day later. The port. The harbor was packed with ships of all sizes, with just a few patches of blue water peeking through. "Here we go," I said quietly, as I heard the departure signal. Thick black smoke poured out of the chimneys while the fleet zoomed across the water, sending sea creatures scattering everywhere. Before long, we spotted an island on the horizon, with its impressive 5-tiered pagoda standing tall in the middle. What a sight! That's the sage's stronghold. We found ourselves facing the enemy fleet, just waiting for us, but everyone was looking up at the sky, where a loud, grating screech filled the air. Ozai stepped out of his cabin, just like everyone else. It felt like something was just around the corner. The screeching got louder. Out of nowhere, a rift appeared above the pagoda, bringing an unsettling vibe with it. "Naruto, looks like things are shifting. We could use your help. So it looks like Roku and balloons just aren't going to cut it. Let's go after the other islands." A bunch of low-level spirits, a lot of them flying around, came out from the rift. "Well, stronger beings can't pass, I thought, feeling a sense of relief. It seems like the barrier between worlds shouldn't let this happen, but it's obvious that someone helped make it possible. Same time. Temple of the Fire Sages. A black energy sphere floated above a stone pedestal, shimmering while a sage held onto it, aging quickly. "Your death is part of our Lord's plans," a fervent sage proclaimed. "Yeah," the fading sage murmured before turning to dust. So, there were these 10 sages who gave up everything, and in doing so, they opened up a little rift. Spirits jumped on it right away. The passage can't get any wider. Get ready to show the enemy what's coming for them. The fanatic's voice had turned inhuman, completely lacking any light. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.